All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Essential Workers. I'm here with my friend Randy, and Randy has been a friend for maybe a year now, or a couple of years. I can't remember when we first met, but we first met at one of the local meetings that I host. I call them ET disclosure and contact and discussion meetings at a local library monthly, and Randy showed up and just had some amazing stories. And I want to first say that Randy is not, completely unique or special because there's lots of people like Randy out there who have wild contact stories that are, hard to wrap your head around. But, when we have open meetings and we can talk about it, we kind of put the puzzle pieces together. Everyone has a different piece of the puzzle. And so I also want to say that Randy did not ask to be interviewed. I reached out to him and I thought this would be fun. I don't think Randy has any agenda. There's not trying to get his name out there or face out there. This is just a really interesting set of stories that are really nice to let people hear about. That's the way I feel about it, at least. And another thing I want to say is that if anything that we talk about today brings up fear in anybody, I want you to like take a step back and reevaluate, because we're not here to spread any kind of message of fear around anything that's going on. And this is a really big, crazy, complex game of our reality that is being played by both positive and negative entities. That's the way I feel about it. And so, yeah, just use your own discernment about everything, and feel free to question everything that we're saying, and realize that we could be wrong about things. And we have our own interpretations. We might be wrong about our interpretations. It's very easy to be wrong about things in this reality where we're very, very limited in our awareness. So yeah, I guess that's the main thing I wanted to share. And so, Randy, I want to give you a chance now to share. So do you feel like your life has been normal in any way?
But what is normal,
Uh,
this is a weird experience, just being a human. What is this? What is this existence? What are we? I don't think anybody has those answers. Look at the state of the world today. It's like, what is normal? Has there ever been such a thing? I don't know.
yeah. So give us an overview, like how much contact experiences have you had in your life? How much paranormal experiences have you had? How many UFOs have you seen? That kind of thing.
So contact stuff for me, it's like it was more of a thing that happened when I was a kid.
Mhm.
I feel like it was pretty consistent. Um, it also came with I don't know if it was their ability to like erase your memory of the events, or I don't know if that's part of it to allow you to kind of like set you free back into the world, and as a test group, to so that you're not tampered with, that you can re-enter into the world without being fearful or damaged or anything like that. I feel like the experiences were, I don't want to say positive or negative. It was like necessary, I would say. More of like maybe from a scientific perspective of, keeping track, monitoring certain members of society as like a test, just like uh, just to keep tabs on us as a species, or if certain one of us are chosen ahead of time. I know that my experience started from even before I was born. I was able to remember things from even before I came into this incarnation, I guess you'd say. Um, so I mean, I think the experience is ongoing. It's not necessarily something I can control, or I can't like call aliens or anything like that, but I feel like they're always there. They said that they would always be there, not far away. So that all started at a young age.
All right, so we can go back into your birth stuff and prior incarnations later, maybe. And we'll start with, I want to know, like, what are your earliest memories of sort of having weird experiences in your bedroom or on spaceships or anything like that?
Yeah. So well, it was always like my individual, what I call my like missions,
Mhm.
um, from being very young during my sleep. Leaving the body. Like we would call astral projection today, I guess.
Mhm.
And there's those experiences. Then there are also the experiences where I don't know if it was like as a cost of this, where there would be a physical aspect to that, where they would come and maybe take me out, physically and test and take samples and stuff like that, and just keep tabs on me. Maybe you know I don't know. It was more of a scientific aspect from their point of view. So that, like I said,
Let's let's start with the astral stuff. So what give us some more specifics of what you experienced.
so ever since I was real little, it was like bedtime was always hard. My parents, they couldn't get me to go to. It was like I always hated going to sleep. For me, it was like, going to work. It was like I'd wake up exhausted. Um, and the whole process was like not something I feared, but just something I didn't look forward to. I try to avoid, put off at the last minute. So, but it was like when I would go to bed, it would like, close my eyes to go to sleep. It was like I would always hear like almost like a shovel, like digging, and it would like almost put me into a trance. And then, as I'm slipping into sleep, I remember I would always feel like my body was floating, like my body would float above my bed. And I always remember thinking, if I open my eyes right now, I know I'm going to be an inch from the ceiling, and then that would be my last memory, and then and I would leave. And now that I'm older, I've done the research. I know that's like an astral projection type of an event. Um, and then it would pretty much, from my memory, it would pretty much be blank. But after this happening so many times, I remember in the process wanting to remember. Like, have you ever tried to remember what it feels like to fall asleep? And you try to like put yourself in a repetition, like, okay, tonight I'm going to try to remember. Tomorrow I'm going to try to, and then every night you try to remember. And eventually you start getting little pieces. I call that like leaving myself breadcrumbs. So, like, what's happening? Like, where am I going? And I started to be able to remember things of what was happening from that moment where I would feel like I'm touching the ceiling to then all of a sudden I'm gone. And I started leaving myself what I call mental breadcrumbs to remember when I woke up what's going on. Why do I feel like this? This is like a very young age. So what today still have memory of is it was almost like if you were around in like the 80s or 90s, there was a show, it was called Quantum Leap, where this person would like disappear from their life and their reality, and they would appear like an incarnation into someone else in order to change the timeline of events or influence certain things to happen that maybe didn't happen and were supposed to. And there was always like a being, I think it was like it was some being that he talked to in the show that was like had like a mastermind ability over it all, who knew where to send him and why, and had this giant plan. And he didn't the actor didn't know or understand any of it, but he knew that he had a mission and he knew he had to finish it. Well, this is what was happening to me. It was like when I would go to sleep, I would leap out of my body and I would go into these experiences on this world, off this world. And it was what I can make of it is that I was living through these other things in order to change some grand timeline of events. And I started leaving myself, you know, these breadcrumbs because after every mission, it was like it all ended the same way. It would like I would do this thing, and it was like sometimes it felt like I was living like a whole lifetime in this period of me just my body's here sleeping, and my soul, my spirit would travel out and incarnate something else. And it was like, I don't know if time was different where I was going or what, but it was like sometimes it felt like I was living a whole life and being this other being, and then I would come back into this body, and I'd wake up exhausted, and all that. But I started leaving myself these mental breadcrumbs of you have to remember this, you have to remember this. And that's when I started to remember that the last part of this experience was always the same. So I would do this mission, and then I would have to report the results of the mission. It was like I had to like upload or download the experience from myself to this it was like a council. Okay, so it was like I would come in from my experience into this large, huge, like marble room with pillars, green marble. And there would always be at the way at the end, a giant marble table, long flat table. And there would be these beings, and they were all like different beings. And it was always an odd number of beings. If there was 11 or 5 or 7, it was always an odd number. And what I would have to do is I would have to report, the conclusion of my mission, or, my accomplishments or my failure. I'd have to enter this room, and in the middle of the room was a giant circle, and I would have to walk into the circle and kneel down on one knee, put my head down, and they would like extract the experience from me and then wipe my memory of it and then shoot me back to my body. And I wake up. This all happened when I was a little kid, so I didn't really know what was going on. It was just I'd just wake up and I'd always just want to go to nature and all that and forget about it all. But I think this was even before school started, so I was little at the time.
You're thinking younger than 5 is when you first had these memories?
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely before school even started.
And did you have any positive or negative feelings about these people, and what do they look like?
So it's these so the beings in the room, is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
They were all different. It was like they were all different. It was like there was tall, like real tall, gray, skinny one with like gold, like I don't want to say armor, but like a almost like an orb thing around. There was there was definitely like a being that was like a vortex, like a void, like an energy, like a like a looked like a portal or something. And there was like a real little one, and it was all different. There was like a human looking one with like a receding hairline with like hair on the side. Um, yeah, it was all it's like it was almost like they had nothing to do with one another except they were all sitting at the table. Whether or not they were all like I feel like they were all like ambassadors from maybe like different sectors or space or something.
And did they ever have any interactions with you? Did you have any feelings about them?
It was always telepathic from what I remember. It was always like I remember like getting busted, like trying to tell myself you will remember this. You will remember this like before I walk into the circle. And I remember like hearing them in my head, like the voice of one was like he knew what I was doing and knew it was wrong. Like they knew what I was up to, but they allowed me to anyways. Like they
Hmm.
didn't think I had the power to do it, or they wanted to see if I could do it, or
Huh,
it's like kind of like that.
huh. And so you kind of developed a little relationship over time. They were this relatively the same entities over time, do you think?
Yeah, I think it was the same ones. Not sure if they were all always there, but like I said, it was always an odd number, and they were all like they were so far away. It was like there was I don't it was like you know what it reminds me of is like the Jedi Council in Star Wars.
Mhm.
That's what if like seeing that movie, it was like, oh, it was like that's familiar to me. I know what that's all about. Um, yeah, that obviously didn't come out till I was in high school, but yeah, it was like they were, I don't know what it was like. They're like my bosses or what. I was a little kid, so um, yeah, it was.
And so the missions that you were beginning were things where you were going out in the astral. They weren't missions on Earth, or was it like they thought you had missions on Earth too?
So the missions themselves, it was like it's just like it's more of like a feeling like of time past that I can retain. Specifics I don't have. Like they definitely took all of that when they took when I did the upload download thing. They would take all that. That's gone. But like it's more of like ages spent. That I feel like like the time was like like I've spent time other places. Like I'm not just my age. Do you know what I mean? Like I've done service for these beings. But the breadcrumbs was always when I was entering the room, telling myself, "You will remember, you will remember, you will remember," and that's what I remember is entering that room and seeing that in that room in that council. That's like that's in there. I could see that's like that room, that marble. It was, which is and I just want to say this too. I grew up down the street from Our Lady of Victory in Lackawanna, New York, the giant church, the big basilica. And I remember walking in there and seeing that marble. And it was like, I don't, I don't, it's like, I don't know if it was a different dimension. I don't know if it was another planet. I don't know. Like I said, I was a little kid.
You're saying that the church reminded you of a different place.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if it was maybe another marble room in the same place in a different parallel dimension, or if there's like a ley line of energy where it's the same and even in different dimensions or something. This is just me. I'm just guessing here, but seeing all that marble, it was like, it's like,
So maybe we could jump forward a little bit now and um, share with us more about um, some of the more significant contact experiences you've had that were very weird while you were awake.
mhm. So I know you said like you don't want people to be afraid or anything like that. But the
Well, we can let
physical,
them interpret whatever. You just give the raw details. We'll let people figure it out for themselves.
yeah. So that whole thing about the missions and stuff, I felt like was more of like my energy body it was like leaving and doing things. My physical body would stay here. Um, but the other encounters where I know I was physically being taken through the wall, of the bedroom, and stuff. So it would be like the same thing. Be going to bed, and I'd be either sleeping or falling asleep, and instead of like floating up, like the bed would just start like shaking, and I would feel it. And it would like there's a house shaking, but like I'm frozen, so I can't open my eyes, I can't look around. But then all of a sudden, I would just be somewhere else, and it was like my body would be frozen, but like my eyes, it was like I could see around, like this. And I could sense the presence of beings, like almost like a doctor's office. And, it was like I remember being really mentally wanting to challenge every, if I'm restrained, I would mentally try to get out of it. And to the point where they found it hard to keep me like constrained. And it was like they would be so annoyed, these beings near me, that it was like they were angry at me, but there would always be like the presence of another behind them, larger, and like as much as these ones would be annoyed and angry, this larger like being would be impressed, like go ahead, get out, see if you can get out, like and as I would, it would like they were impressed by that.
Were these grays?
I would say something like insecty, like gray, maybe
Okay,
something like that.
more like insectoid than gray.
Yeah. Oh, maybe like the smaller ones were like some kind of like a drone ant or something
Hmm.
feeling. Um,
And this was like a
or-
traditional abduction experience you felt that you were being restrained?
what's that?
Was this like more a regular abduction experience where this was kind of like not part of your missions, this is part of being restrained for some purpose?
Yeah, like my physical self would be taken fully. And it wasn't just my spirit or anything. This was like I wasn't incarnating anything else. This was me, and I'd be on the table, and these little ones would be around me almost like they were the workers, and they would be tasked with doing, taking samples, or it was always like a feeling of extreme frustration where I would want to break the bonds, and they would go deeper. They would put it harder on me, and I'd try to get out and try to communicate with them in my mind and stuff, and like really resisting the experience to the point where I feel like they would just put me out completely.
Hmm.
And like I feel like even in that being out, that my energy body would still want to wake out, take out. And I remember being like above my body and looking down, and there being like tubes like going into my throat, like maybe keeping me alive. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was not something I liked. It was something I definitely didn't like. But at the same time, like I said, there was always the presence of like an elder or a larger energy presence there who would want to reward me. Even like the harder I would be, even cause them damage, the little ones damage, kicking or screaming and fighting. It was like the elder one, like he wanted that. He was like they were interested in that anger that I felt that it was like respected. like, wow, like this is a good one. Um, and at the end of it, it was like they would take, then I'd always be given something, not physical, but like they would put something in where they had taken something out. And I feel like as I got older and got into this stuff, looking and researching and stuff, like the idea that even in religious times there would be certain people would be given gifts of knowledge or enlightenment or something like that. I feel like I've been given rewards as a result of this experience too. So for what they took, they would give, whether it was like a karmic balance type of thing, or something like that. But yeah,
So what do you think they were trying to take from you?
I think that they were, I think that they were impressed by my ability to interact with them mentally, psychically, spiritually, my ability. I think they wanted that. Um, my emotional range, even when there wasn't like an abduction experience, they were still in touch with me like throughout the day as a kid. As a little kid, it was like the little guys. It was like there was always at least three of them, and they were always like if I reached out in my mind, they were there. And I grew up on a dead end street, and there was a creek that ran around that dead end street, and I would always wake up early before everyone else and just get out of sleep. I hated sleeping, and everyone else would be sleeping, and I would write a note and leave a note for my mom and my dad. I'm going down the creek. I'm going to play by myself, and I would go down to nature, and I would, and it was like they were always there, like in my mind. They were always watching over me, and but they would communicate like through that way, like through my mind. And I know that they had a deep interest in my human emotion, and they wanted that. They didn't have it, like empathy and love and that, and they wanted to understand more about that. And I feel like as just me personally, with my family and stuff, we've always been a really highly emotional, loving, warm family. And I don't know, maybe they just it was something rare, Even growing up, having friends, it was like meeting friends and their families and stuff. It was like they didn't have it like I had it. I was kind of spoiled that way. I had really good parents and a good structure like that. And I was loved. My grandparents lived right next door. And I was always surrounded by love and light and stuff. And I don't know, maybe I was just a good sample, that they could gather from and learn from.
Do you think there were genetics taking that kind of interest too?
Yeah, I know for sure they were taking samples of me. And at the end of it, because it did come to an end at age 11, they stopped, it all stopped. But before that, there was like um there was like a sexual experience, like female energy. And I would wake up and it was like I had sex, and I didn't even really at that age know really what that was all about. And it was like I expected to be like wet and stuff, and there nothing. And it was like, whoa, like I know what, but it was like they did it because they had to, not because they were trying to hurt me, but because it was just like a part of the science. Or like I always after I got older, I said maybe I am the clone. It's like,
Mhm.
so I don't know. It was like I feel like there's science involved, as much as there is spirituality and stuff. And I feel like they're learning, and somehow they aren't, like, we're special as a race, as a human
Mhm.
race. I feel like we have something that is coveted out there.
One other story before we move on, I guess I wanted to cover was you mentioned going down to the creek, and you had to share a story about astral projecting down there. Sure, was that a common place you would visit for
Yeah.
connecting?
Yeah, so this was always my place to go. Um, I would go down the creek, and I would love fishing, and the idea of, like, catching other animals and stuff, like the exploring nature and that. And there was a spot in the river, it was called Bedrock. There was a giant rock, and where the current bent around the end of the street there. And it was like a little rapids waterfall area where on the side where I would sit, it was like silt, like Egyptian silt. It was like real rich, dark soil. And I found that the fishing right there was really good. So I'd always cast my pole and, put it down on the ground by my feet. And then I would crouch down, and like hug my knees, like almost like a fetal position. and then I put my hand like this, and it would always I would always look at my hand and say, this is not my hand. This is like an alien hand. This doesn't look right. And I would stare into my palm, and then I would like ask, it would be blackness, and then I'd be gone. And then all of a sudden I'd hear my mom, Ran, call me for dinner. And it's like I just got here. Like this is like 6, 7 in the morning, and all of a sudden, lunch or whatever, it's like hours had gone by. So, you know, I don't know if that was like just natural for me to do that, but sometimes when it wouldn't work, I remember I'd look at my hand and I'd say 5 fingers, and I would cover up my pinky, and I would look at my hand as if it had 4 fingers. And then I would stare at my palm, and it was like immediate. And I would remember, like I would go to this, you know, it was almost like a memory of being a different being.
That
And it
had
would,
4 fingers.
yeah. And then that it would be immediate, and I don't know if that called them or if that did something, but seeing the 4 fingers somehow felt more natural than the five.
And so you would go off and just have astral projections all day?
Yeah, I would just be gone. It was like I would put the fishing pole by my feet or under my foot or something. So if I got a bite or something, I would feel it and then I'd all of a sudden be back. But yeah, it was like missing time. I don't really have memory about where I would go or what, but I do know that when I would leave, this is weird to say, not that this isn't all weird, but when I would leave to go back up to go home, as soon as I would turn my back on the creek, I would feel a presence suddenly, like it would make me scared. And I remember after so many times, I remember feeling it out, and I would question it, like, what is this? What are you? I felt like it was coming from the water. And after so many times of this happening, I remember having like a communication of like where I would connect with whatever it was, and I could tell that whatever this was had to hold itself back from attacking me, or the feeling of wanting to attack me when my back was turned, almost
Hmm.
like a predator would wait for a prey animal to turn around before it would attack. But I don't feel like this thing ever wanted to attack me. I feel like it was fighting its own instinct not to, knowing that I wasn't a prey item, but it would still feel that when it saw me turn around, that vulnerability. And I would feel fear like instant, like I'd be down there for hours. I'd feel no fear at all. But the second I turned my back to leave, all of a sudden I would get real, real afraid. But I never, nothing ever happened. But eventually I had some kind of communication where I knew that that's what that was, is whatever was there with me was fighting its own instinct or behavior, that urge to attack when something turns its back, you know. So
Yeah, and interesting to me that we never really know how many types of beings we are interacting with when we're having one experience. There could be just another type of being right there observing the whole thing too, right?
yeah, yeah, or I think as humans too, I think that we're all connected as a planet, even in our thoughts and stuff. We're all connected. There's like a grid, like a cloud, they say now. But it's not just limited to our planet. We're in tune with all of these things that are out there way beyond our own little lives. And when we have these experiences and stuff, I feel like it attracts the attention of other things.
Yeah. I would love to go into more of your school experiences or later on in your life now. Do you have anything that comes to mind of um, anything worth sharing about your earlier school experiences?
Yeah, so like in high school, it was like I don't know if this was intentional or if it just happened, if this is just the way of the world, that what happens when we sleep. But the people who I knew from school and stuff, like I would be able to communicate with them while I'm sleeping, and I would find them while we're sleeping and go on adventures and everything else, like in our astral bodies. And I was aware, it was like I was aware and they were aware, and we'd have great times, and I'd, share these experiences and then wake up, and it was like I knew it happened, but then when I'd see him in school, it was like there was no one there, it was like, hey, and it was like, but somehow it was like a part of them knew that I was there, like as a I don't want to say like a mentor, but like that I was a friend, and it was like, it was like I feel like I know you like more than I know you, it's like instant closeness with people. um, especially girls.
Yeah, I
They,
should share
they
that
were,
I had that very strongly with you when I first met you. It's like I had difficulty with you trying to tell me we had not met before. I was really struggling. It's like I can hardly believe that.
yeah, because we have met.
Yeah.
We have, it's just, and I don't think this is special. Like, I don't think I'm special in this. I think we all do it, and then we have those little moments where it's like, hey, I was just thinking about you. That's so weird that now you're here. It's like, to me, that's just, I know, I understand that completely, and I
Yeah.
think people are starting to realize what that is.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was like in the waking hours, it was like intoxicating. It's like I said, especially with girls. It was like in school, I always had friends that were girls. And it was like I was friends with the guys too, but there was something in the guys where like they kind of didn't like me. I don't know if it was like a jealousy thing or what, but it was like people always came to me for advice, and it was like I could see their problems. I knew exactly what was happening. I would ask them questions about at home, what it was like for them at home and stuff like that. I was able to really quickly diagnose other people's problems and give them exact advice that they needed. And they'd come, the next day or the next week or whatever. They'd be like, "Hey, I tried it. I did that thing you told me, man. Thank you." And it was like that felt great. I always felt like that was what I was here to do. Like that was like my calling on earth was to just help people and bring people together and solve conflict and stuff. So
Great. Yeah. Um, so I would love to hear about the story where you were um, seeing the bright light outside in the middle of the night. That would be a great starting point. That might be one of the first stories you ever shared with us too, I think.
yeah, that was a really good one too, because it wasn't just me. It was like entire city blocks. Um, this was early 2000s. It was in the winter months. It was snowing, and I grew up on, like I said, the dead end street. And it was like my grandparents, my parents' house. And then later in life, in my teenage years, I had an aunt that had bought the third house on the other side of my parents. So I ended up getting an apartment. The first time I left my parents' house, I rented the apartment upstairs from my aunt, and it was great. It was like a little loft upstairs, and there was this crawl space upstairs. If I climbed through this cubby, where I could go up there, and there was enough room to stand. So being a teenager and stuff, I was like, I want to grow some weed. So I was doing that. I was growing weed there, and I'd been up there dozens of times, all the time, and never any problems. This one night, it was late at night. I want to say between midnight and 1 a.m. And I was up there doing my thing. And all of a sudden, I felt fear, like somebody was up there with me. And looking in the back, where it was real dark. And I felt in my mind the little guys. I was like, oh my God, they're back. And it made me afraid. All of a sudden, I felt fear. And I was looking back. I thought when I looked back, I would see him, but I didn't see anything. And as soon as I looked back like that, all of a sudden my phone rang downstairs, underneath where the ladder was. So obviously I jumped down. I wanted to get out of there. So I jumped down and I answered the phone. And it's my mom, and she's freaking out. And it's my dad and my mom. I could hear my dad in the back.
And what time
Randy,
of day was
Randy.
this?
It was like late at night, like between midnight and 1 a.m.
Is that very weird that they were awake then?
Yeah, for my mother, not my father. My father was a night owl. Um,
What'd they say?
So I could hear it in their voice. They're afraid. And then Randy, Randy, look out the window. Look out the window. I run to the front and I open the blinds, and what should be completely black night is bright as day, white light, like not sunlight, but like the cool fluorescent bulbs, not the warm one, like the bluish white, the cold bulbs, is like that, but it's like daytime and it's snowing. Man, I grabbed my coat and flew down the stairs. I was out of that house. I was going, it was like a little kid. I was like, I wanted my mommy. So like I ran like to go to my parents' house. Right when I got outside, all of a sudden I wasn't afraid anymore. And right in the middle of the houses, I stopped and I fixed my coat. I'm just still getting my coat on, and I'm looking up, and I could see the snowflakes, and I could this white light, and I could hear this hum like a like that. And I'm like, what is this? So I go to my parents' house, and they're like, what is going on? And they're like, is it the aliens? And it's like, and then come to find out, it was the first moment my father had ever touched a computer. He's always bothering my brother, hey, can you look this up? Can you look this up for me? Can you look this up for me? It was the first time where my brother was like, can you sit down? I'm going to show you how to do this. And he said, as soon as he touched the keyboard, that's when it happened. All of a sudden, boom, white light through the windows and everything. So I don't know if that's like something going on there or what. But this lasted for about 12, 15 minutes at least. And I remember I was we were all excited. You'll forget what time it was. It didn't matter. I immediately got on the phone and I called my buddy Jarrett, who had lived about 5 or 6 blocks away. And he answered. I knew he was up. And he answered. He's like, "Did you see that?" And he's like, "Well, I'm calling to see, And it was like, "You seen it too?" So this was like a big thing. Whatever this was, it was big.
And it was exactly like daytime?
It was as bright as day, but it wasn't like I don't know how to explain this. It's like when the sun is shining, it's like a warm reddish light. This was not had no warmth, no reddish at all. It was like a fluorescent bulb.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, you go to the store and you look at the bulbs, there's like the cool white and then the warm red, or the
Yeah.
cool blue and the warm red. This was they had like that bluish fluorescent, like office
Yeah.
kind of it wasn't the sun.
So do you think that if there was a ship above you, that the snow kind of obscured your ability to see it, or do you think it was invisible?
Um, yeah, it might have been invisible. I just remember looking up and I could see the snowflakes coming down still. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I don't know.
Um, so I guess I guess your parents could still verify this story to this day. Do they have any interpretations about what they think it was?
They said they'll tell you the exact same story, the exact same energy and everything. We're all like exactly on the same page. We've always been like exactly the same.
That's great. Um, I guess I should let you finish. Was there any other details to that story?
So my father worked for the city, the municipality there.
Mhm.
So next day going to work, he obviously asked around. And the firemen confirmed they got calls from all over, and it was not like exclusive to us. This happened in a large area, and a lot of people saw it. So
Yeah, very interesting. But it kind of was associated with you said the little guys.
yeah,
Who were these little guys? Were these the ant people?
I feel like it was even smaller ones.
Hmm.
I feel like back when I was little, and they would take me out of my bed. They would be standing next to me while I was on the surface of like a table, and I feel like they were probably like 3.5, 4 feet. But I feel like these little guys were like 1.5, 2 feet maybe, like little guys. And like I said, it was just I felt the fear before I could. It was like I saw him in my mind, but I felt the fear before that happened.
So they popped into your head, and did they have anything to say to you, or was it just kind of just this random flash of experience?
No, it was just it was just so weird because I felt all of a sudden I just felt afraid. I had no idea this was going on outside, that there was bright lights. And then it was like the imagery of them in my head. And then I was just I feel like I just panicked. Like maybe that's why when I was a kid, it was like they would put a freeze on me, because it was like as a human, I just panic. And when I was in control of my emotions, I just wanted to flee, fight or flight.
Mhm. All right, we can move on to other stories. I love that story. Uh, um, I guess we can move on to um, you had talked about um, the silent screams that you discovered. How old were you when that happened?
So this was the same apartment around the same period of time. This was after 9/11, and that happened, and I immediately was like, I gotta we gotta pay attention. Like this is crazy. This is like history. So I started paying attention heavily to politics and watching C-SPAN and all that stuff. And I felt like there was something more to it. So I
And you
started
had a
getting
premonition about 9/11 too, right?
yeah, yeah. Um, so I was just so frustrated. It was like I could see things when I would watch these politicians talk, or George Bush giving these speeches and stuff, and it was like I could see through them. Maybe one of the gifts they gave me, I don't know, but it was like I could read between what they were saying, and I knew what the truth was. And I would go to my parents and I would try, specifically my dad, I would try to explain to him, hey, this is, people don't see it, but this is what's going on. It's not right. And I would try to dump it all on him. And it was just too much for him, even. He's, and it just got frustrating. And no one really talked to that understood it. So I just remember going home. It was like the one night, and I was so frustrated. I just wanted to scream. And I was in my upstairs there. I would just gotten back from my parents' house and I wanted to scream so bad. And like all these thoughts in my head that I couldn't get out. And I knew if I screamed, that not only would the neighbors would probably hear me, my aunt downstairs would hear me, it would be like, I can't, I'm a grown guy now. I can't just be screaming like that. So, but I had to do, my parents, when I was little, they used to tell me, go scream into your pillow. When I was a little kid, they'd make me go scream in my pillow. So I wanted to do that. So I was in the middle of the room from the living room to the kitchen, and I like let out like a silent scream, like I screamed, but I didn't let any sound come out. And in the process, it wasn't just me screaming; it was like kind of like getting all my thoughts out with the scream. You know, like like it's almost like you can almost like shrink wrap all your thoughts and like try to get it out. Like that. And I did one of those, like one of those, and boom, the power went out. Everything black. Again, I was like, did I just do that?
And what time of day was this?
This was at night. It was night. It was probably 8 or 9 p.m. Because then I'd come home, I'd play video games. And so I remember like, oh crap, did I just blow out the power? So I wanted to go and see if my parents thought, and I was like, did I just do this? So I was gonna go again to my parents' house and see. And again, I stopped right in the middle of the houses. I had a feeling like, just stop. Don't go over there. They're not gonna understand anyways. So I just, instead of going there, I went into their backyard. There was a willow tree. And I just leaned up against the tree and I was like shaking, like vibrating. Like, did I just do this? What? So I was still frustrated. So I said, well, if I did it, I'm going to do it again. Because I could see like across the way, there was another street and I could see the power was on over there. So I was like, if I did that, I'm going to do it again. So I tried to do it again, let it all out, get it out. And boom, the streetlights blew out on the street, like across the creek, and the transistor on a pole blew up. Sparks like I was like, am I an X-Men? Like, what the heck is this?
Were you in your 20s when this happened?
Yeah, I was like right around 20. Yeah, I
Uh,
was like right around 2002, 3.
yeah. Yeah. When you shared that in the meeting, I shared a story. I had a similar experience with an LSD experience. I probably don't have to share, but yeah, it's like I know this is real, that we have some weird energetic thing. And people know it all the time with technology failing. Just little bursts of emotion can cause your computer to crash. Just little and light bulbs to go out. This is not entirely uncommon, but maybe not to the extent that you've experienced it. Yeah.
Brother, similar things have happened with my brother. He was in a band. He still is. And he was recording, they were doing something with the band, and they were writing a song, and he said he was frustrated because they weren't listening to him, like what he wanted, his input for the song. And at the time he was so young, my mom would drive and pick him up and stuff. And my dog at the time was in the back seat of their car, of my mom's car, when she went to pick him up. And he was coming out of band practice, and all of a sudden my dog started barking at him, like she didn't recognize him. And they thought this was weird. And then he got in the car, and as soon as he sat down, all the car instruments and stuff started. Woo, woo, woo. It was like the radio was woo, 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 everything. All the lights were going out and stuff. And he said they even after the ride home, he got home and he went to put the CD in and everything, nothing would work. And it was like, so yeah, it's not like just me. This is something I feel like we have, the ability to,
Yeah. We are energy beings, definitely.
you know,
Yeah. Um, so was there anything else relating to this you wanted to share? Um,
no, not really. I
I
guess
guess,
isolated things, I try
um,
not to focus on that because I don't want to blow out TVs or
yeah,
something.
yeah. Um, so have you seen UFOs directly?
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely seen UFOs. I've had quite a few experiences actually. There was a couple experiences where there were like silverish diamond shapes I've seen. I remember driving to work. I used to work at Office Max, and early morning getting there and driving to work. And I remember like in the distance, maybe 2, 3 miles, between 2 and 4 miles, way in the distance, I could see like a giant. I don't want to say it was a cigar shape because it might have been like a circular shape and I could just see the peripheral, but it was like a long, skinny, and it was just cruising, man. And it was cruising in such a straight line, like it was like fixed. You know what I mean? It wasn't like trying to go anywhere. It was just real slow, just cruising. I'm driving, trying to keep my eye on the thing. And I get to work, and after I lost it behind the trees and whatnot, and I made it to work, and like all that day, I felt like I'm like they're connected, like I could, like they're there, like in my head again, and it was like, okay, you guys are there all the time, and it's like they're not always personally there, but they're always up there. I feel like they're always there.
Do they have a particular vibration compared to others? Do you know the different vibrations of the feeling that you're talking about of who is there?
That doesn't always come like if I see things.
Mhm.
But that time it did, like where I felt like there was like if I thought like I could hear them in there. That I don't know, all the sightings I've had, and I've had quite a few sightings because I'm always looking. People don't look. I feel like if you look, you're gonna see stuff, and people just don't. They're down here. And it's like I've always, ever since I was little, always, looking around. And my parents were a little different. They didn't tell you things weren't real. It was like, I'm gonna go find a leprechaun. Okay, man, go ahead, go outside and find one. It was like they just encouraged that. It was like they didn't say, "Oh, that's not real," and put you in a box. My parents were like, "Okay, go ahead."
Nice.
So I grew up with like my mind was open to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think your parents have kind of been believers in the UFO subject for a while?
So it's funny you say that. My mom was never like into this stuff so much as my dad was, and my dad's father, even my grandfather, they were always like talking about angels, and they were really into the Bible, and my grandparents and stuff, Bible studies and all that stuff. They were always open to that stuff. And my dad and my uncle were always, listening to like Art Bell and stuff like that. And like I remember as a kid, like my dad would tell me stories, even as I'm little, about King Solomon, and the two women that claimed the baby was theirs. And the King Solomon said, "Well, I don't know. One of you is lying. I don't know which one of you is telling the truth. So I'll split the baby in half, and you can each have half." And the one woman said, "Okay, go ahead." And the other woman said, "No, no, no. Okay, give her the baby." He said, "That's how King Solomon knew the real mother." These are the kind of stories I would hear as a real little guy. So, my dad was always like really, a deep thinker and conversationalist and stuff. And, even like this is weird, but like even I have memory of seeing my mother and father before I was born. And I remember like not wanting to come into this world again. And I remember being convinced to come because of my father. I remember saying, like, I like him. I'm interested in him. And I'll come here to be with him and teach him. Of course, my dad did not like to hear that growing up, when I was little, that I came here to teach him. But
When do you think you first said that to him?
when I was little, like real little.
And maybe you should share the story. What were your first words?
Yeah. So, I don't have this memory, but this is a story that my dad would all, he told me. I was in the car seat, real little, and my parents were driving from Buffalo over the Skyway, like coming into the city. And from the back seat, from the car seat, I said, "I'm an alien." And I did what? He almost swerved off the road. That was like my first, it was like, what did he just talk? Like, what? He's an alien. What?
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So let's continue on the thread now of around your birth experience. So you do remember right before you were born and all the way up to birth?
Yep. I remember I remember before coming here, and I remember there was an agreement, like a contract that had to be agreed to before I came. And I remember there were beings that wanted me to come. They said they assured me that this experience wouldn't be like the others. And they said all we need is for you to be there, and your presence alone will help to shift the scales in our fit in the favor of good. I said, that's all we need you to do this time is just be. Just go down there and be. We'll make it easy for you. You won't have to do much. Just go down there and be yourself, and that'll be enough. That's all we ask. I remember saying, no, and I'm not doing it again. And I was in this, I want to say like a craft, a satellite above the earth. I remember laying on this cold surface looking, I don't know if it was like a glass panel, and I was pressed up against it looking at the earth. And I just like, I'm not doing this again. Like I don't want to come down here again. And that's when they showed me my parents and assured me everything would be different. And I remember agreeing to losing all my memory and starting fresh and not having any advantage or anything. And I also remember them knowing that in my head, listening to this, I knew that I was like, yeah, okay, I'll remember things, because, being who I was, somehow I knew that I would be able to have this memories and just being confident. And they were like, okay, okay. And then as soon as I agreed, okay, fine, I'll do it. It was like, bam, instantly, like I'm there, like I'm being born, like that's it. As soon as I agreed, it was like, bam, instantly, and I was down here again. But yeah, I have memory. I have memory from even before this life, you know, traces of different existences and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have reported that kind of thing, and that yeah, I mean it does seem like the mission of the Wanderers or the Star Seeds really is just a vibrational thing, where it's literally just adding a little bit of a higher vibration through being here is what it is. It's without any specific agenda. It's just to be of service or help with that loving vibration that seems to be what we're coming in with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like and this makes more sense now than ever because looking at the world today, and it's like we're really teetering, it's like we're teetering between like, I don't want to say good and evil, but like it does feel like there is like a balance going on and that there are forces trying to push and there are forces that are trying to pull, and yeah, it makes sense now. It didn't when I was little, but it does now.
Yeah. So let's go back even further now. Do you have memories from previous lifetimes, do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, so previous lifetimes on Earth, um,
Either.
and off Earth, or
Yeah.
inner Earth, maybe. Um, I do have a memory of like a subterranean dwelling where I wasn't a human, and this dwelling felt very underground and secure. Like it was like I liked it. Um, and like I can see like the room, what we would call like a kitchen today, but it was like all in one. It wasn't just like a kitchen. It was like everything. And it was like everything was like a real drab, like speckled color. It was like I don't want to say like stone, but it was like stone, like a speckled stone. And the lighting on this building and the inside where I lived was like a recess light, like backlit. Like have you ever seen those like frosted glass ornaments or Christmas decorations where it's like the lights inside and like it emanates from inside and like the outside's like like actually like this candle, like that. That's what the whole inside of the dwelling was like. And I remember it feeling like I never need to leave this place. It was like this was my like where I lived. And I remember my skin was like a bark, like a tree bark material. So that's like definitely one memory of a
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, there's been many reports across the history of ufology relating to like beings that are more like plant-like in their nature, even though they're kind of humanoid and they can walk around, they still have that sort of genetics from plants more so than what we think of as mammals.
yeah. Yeah, it was definitely not a human. That's for sure. I don't know if it was like on a different planet or in this planet, maybe in a different age. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's one. Um, I have memories of like what we would call like the Egyptian times. I don't know if it was like if it was like Egypt as like that in this life. I don't know if I would have called it Egypt necessarily, but like I have a memory from like that time period. that actually there were remnants of that life that came out in this life when I was little. Like when I was little in this life, real little. I used to always like fight with my brother and stuff, wrestle around and stuff. And I always felt like if I could get him underneath my feet, that there was somehow I was dominant in that way. And it was like only later in life that I would see like the pictures of the Egyptians where they're depicted as on like a say a boat or something, and then the life forms underneath them were lower forms, or like if they conquered like a kill or a lion or something, they would always put their foot on. It was like a real primal feeling of like if I could get them under my feet. And I have these memories of being on this boat, barefoot on this boat with a bow and a spear and hunting, like and fishing and growing things and harvesting crops and irrigation and all that. I didn't really know what it meant till I got older. And then I started learning about Egypt and I was like, hey, I remember this. It was like, what? Try to tell people, they're like, what? You're imagining that. But I knew it was real. I knew what I remember.
Yeah, yeah, that seems to be a common one that people have, that time frame, the Atlantean time frame. Yeah,
Yeah, there
but
was always,
it's
I
hard.
remember a dagger. I remember I had a dagger. It was, I don't know if it was like an onyx, like a black glass or something. It was like real special. It was like an honorary thing. Like it was given to me after some accomplishment. And I remember I remember entering like this temple, like stone temple, huge. And I remember there being uh like American, did you ever see American Gladiator when you're younger?
Yeah.
Like going through obstacles and stuff. I remember that from that period of like going through obstacles like a maze and then like it's like snakes and bugs. And I remember there was even a portion where like I went underwater and there was like I remember seeing like a crocodile in there and like you had to hold your breath and it was like you die in there like if you didn't find your way out, you had to find air.
Hmm.
I remember all that because I remember the extreme panic and fear and all that from that experience, and that somehow the remnants of that are were in me as a kid. You know,
You think that came through at a particular time, or is it just kind of bits and pieces that you don't know where it came from?
no, it definitely like when I was little, it was always in there. You know,
Hmm.
and it was like I said, seeing like I remember in school getting to that page of geography where it was just like one page of like the Native Americans, and it was like, okay, I want more of this. And you turn the page, and then it was like Egypt, and it was like one page, and it was like, where's the rest of this? Because I have all these memories now. Just seeing that triggered the memory. It was like, okay, I remember all this. And just flood. All of a sudden just flood. I don't know if it was part of the gift I was given of memory, little bits of memory I was given as a gift or a reward or what, but
So, I would like to know more about how the contact experiences kind of unfolded. And was there something significant that happened when you became, like 11 years old, that time frame?
so yeah. So once I hit 11 years old, it was like a departure. It was like, okay, we gotta go now. This is all gonna end for you.
And what is all this? Well, who was this that was kind of giving
So
this
like
communication?
all the mission stuff, like while I was sleeping, and like all the like abduction stuff and the bad like uncomfortable samples and all that, tubes and all that experiences and stuff. I remember when hitting like 11 years old, and then in like it was always mental. It wasn't like face to face communication. It was like spoken through me, like my thoughts, but not my thoughts. And it was like, now that you're going to be 11, we're going to leave now and leave you to be, to have your human experience. Now we're gonna step back. We'll never truly leave, but we're going to leave you now. We're going to leave you alone, kind of thing. And your work's been done. It was like the feeling of like you can retire now. Like you've done enough for us now. We're going to let you go. And just be a kid and all that. And it's like, but they gave me a choice, and it was like, you can come with us if you want, or you can stay and be a human. And I don't know if I chose to go or stay. That's why I wonder, like, if I'm like some kind of clone and like I went, or if I think I just chose to stay, but I definitely stayed because I'm here now. But it was like I remember it being like sad, like I didn't want them to leave. It was like I'll miss you. And it was like, well, we'll never truly be gone. We'll always be here, but we'll come back from time to time to check on you. And it was like the feeling like every 11 years, we're going to check in with you, which is weird because when I had the experience with the Scream, it was like right around 11 years after that. It was like I was like right around 22, and it was like, I don't know, if like they come back and switch me on and see if I'm ready or what, or see where the humanity's at or what. But it's like, I remember them saying, we're going to leave now. But it was like, they would even say, like, you have family here and they're all here and they're all waiting for you. And they're all really proud of you and the work you've done and the work you're going to do. But but go live this life, and we'll all be here watching you and waiting for you, and we'll all be reunited again eventually. And it was like sad. I remember it was like sad, but it was like, okay, and then boom, it was like it just stopped. So then everything stopped. Like I was having no more, no more missions. Like no, I don't think I was. I mean, I might have been abducted. I don't know. I don't have any memory of anything else after that point, really. But like the stuff I was able, there was like a residual leftover abilities, where like when I'd go to sleep, I could go and jump around and like meet my friends and have all that stuff. But even as I got older, that faded. I got less and less able to do that. But
Yeah, that's pretty common experience. After a certain age, those kinds of experiences are much harder. And I suspect it's, layers of our culture that make us sort of more agitated or anxious, and we don't have that same childhood innocence and peaceful nature that we can just freely leave our bodies as easily. But maybe there's a psychic function too that's just harder to maintain. Um, but I know I've heard many stories of people who make efforts, such as with the Monroe Institute materials, to be able to astral project and that kind of thing. But I know it is much more natural. I certainly had many easy out of body experiences, I think, when I was very young. And certainly in the dream state, it's easy to have the flying dreams, where you're going around. And did you have a lot of flying dreams as a kid?
yeah, yeah, tons of them. And you know what? I know, it's like you're dead on. I mean, it's the pressure of the world. It's like you got to go to work, you got to pay your bills, you got to raise your kids, or you got to, you have all this stuff that when you sleep, you're not like you don't. It's not rest. Like there's a part of you then that kicks on, and it does work. Like you figure out your problems, and like your subconscious starts going, And if when you're little, your subconscious got nothing else to do, so it just goes out and exploring and having fun. But
Yeah.
when you're an adult and stuff is like the pressures of the world, just you got other stuff to do, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think, is there any other stories that you wanted to share? Or you don't think we haven't covered yet?
I mean, there's
That
a
was a
bunch.
pretty good overview. That
Yeah,
was a lot of stuff in 1 hour. That was great. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
I could go on and on and on and on, but
so I guess I could share. Thank you so much for sharing all this, and people are going to love this, and um, yeah, we can totally help you, have you do more content if you'd like to share more in the future too, if you
yeah.
want to share anything. Um, and we, um, yeah, just very excited to have you sharing all this stuff. Had you shared all this before with many people?
No, not many. Like I started to tell you guys some of the stuff with the groups, and like my parents, I would tell them stuff, and they just became a part. They were just like, "Oh, Randy, okay," they would listen. It wasn't like they would dismiss me or anything, but it was just, I don't know. It was like they heard it all. None of this stuff is probably going to be too shocking if they were to watch this. So
Uh,
I always had them. A couple friends, little stuff here and there, but never really get into the deep stuff. Like we did today.
And do you feel like it was ever disturbing to you as a kid trying to process all these memories, or were you always very sure of yourself and this is just who I am?
No, there was never any doubt.
Mhm.
Um, It wasn't always comfortable, like I said, the going to sleep and stuff. It was like going to work, and it was taxing. It's probably why I got no hair. Just like a stress, and just dealing with adult things at a very young age. Like I feel like my soul was maybe older than than my body here on earth. But like I even the very even little guy, like just maybe barely even able to walk. I remember looking in the mirror at myself and crying and saying, "What is this? What am I? This is I'm so ugly." Like being a human was like, this is not who I am. It was like, what is this now? What am I now? Like this isn't me. What is this? I'd look at my hand and say, what is this? It was like I didn't belong in this body. It was like, what is this foreign thing that I am now? So it wasn't always fun, but at the same time, I wouldn't change anything, even the worst of it. It is what it is.
Do you have any inkling of what your prior nature was then, besides the four-fingered aspect? Do you think you were one of the ant people, or do you think you were more humanoid, like, or more like human looking? Do you think?
Well, there's like all these different chapters in my mind where there were points where I was like human, like in the, I don't know, Atlantean or Egyptian, whatever that was, whatever period that was, I was definitely a human. And then there are the other experiences where I definitely wasn't, but still I feel like I was two legs, two arms, a body and a head. And I
Yeah,
feel like more importantly, the soul it was always me. I don't know if that makes sense, but like whether I
yeah,
was, we'll say, the Egyptian version of me or the subterranean alien version of me, or there was even a memory where I remember getting shot in the back of the head and I was a human then. I mean, I have a birthmark,
no,
where I know I got shot in the head in a previous life, and I was a human then, but I was still me in all of these experiences. It was still me, and I think that's kind of comforting too. Is like I don't think this life is the end of anything.
yeah,
It's another chapter of you being you.
yeah, absolutely. So I guess this is maybe a good time to wrap it up to make it easier for people to watch a shorter clip this time. But we can also open this up now to the people who are attendees and chat a little bit more with people too. So um, yeah, I can thank you again for joining us, Randy, and um, I'm sure everyone else is very happy to have that download of interesting stories because it's like we're always just trying to figure out the puzzle pieces of what actually is nature reality, what's going on. And I think so many people have confusing memories from being a kid. They don't know how to put it into a bigger picture, but hearing all these other stories helps people, I think, appreciate maybe they were, a star seed and had other things going on, and they're coming here that makes the story make a little bit more sense for them. Certainly for me, it did. Everything clicked a little bit more. Yeah, I haven't even shared a lot of my stories yet, but it's like I agree with you spot on that yeah, this is a mission that we're on, and there's been many kinds of missions that we're here for, but ultimately the main mission is just elevating the consciousness on Earth, elevating the vibration, helping people recognize that we're all one. We're all doing this together. We're here to try to elevate humanity to the level that makes it possible for people to be more loving altogether. And what we remember as being a nicer kind of planet. We're trying to make Earth that kind of nice kind of planet that we came in with.
Yeah, absolutely. You're touching on. I feel like they've shown me the big picture. I have so much to say. There is a. See, you're right on. I mean, as a people, as a planet, we're so divided by governments or by different religions and stuff like that. But it's like, man, every religion has truth. We know it's like everybody. I always every religion has a piece of the puzzle. None of them have the big picture, and they all say the same thing: is like, don't hurt one another, love one another. We're all brothers and sisters here. And it's like, did we forget that? Why all these wars? Why all these governments bringing us into wars and religious differences making us fight one another? We're all family. We have to love one another. This is ridiculous. It's like we need to evolve to the next stage. And I feel like that's what some of us are like coming here to help raise that frequency, that vibration of oneness, and you know, drop the baloney, stop this nonsense. Come together because the average person's a good person. We just want to raise our families and love one another, and eat some good food and enjoy this beautiful planet. And what else matters really? Nothing else matters. And we can all come together on that. And eat good food and share and one another and stuff. That it's not hard. It's like be nice. As my father, he used to get so frustrated with me and my brother. He'd always boil it down. He'd say, "You two dumbasses." He's like, "I'm going to boil it down for you to 2 words. Can you handle 2 words? Be nice. That's all you got to do. Just be nice to one another." It's that simple. If we could just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. That's a great place to end the conversation. So thank you again
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
take care, everybody.